the real estate industry getting involved in major ways. But there's a caveat here. I would love to participate in this. And in fact, we had Grant, we've had both. We had Grant Cardone on the channel about a month ago, and we talked about his new integration, his new platform where they're basically merging Bitcoin investment paired with real estate investment. But the caveat with this is you need $5 million to get involved. And this is him talking about that just briefly, what he said.
We have $42 million of Bitcoin that we pay nothing for. We made $6 million on the real estate. The Bitcoin was purchased by the cash flow of the real estate. But if you had the two together, it would be a new mechanism, a new vehicle for lending money against a piece of real estate and against the Bitcoin. So you have instant liquidity against a very stable, low volatility asset. I started looking at what if I made my distributions to myself, which are significant. What if I'd have paid myself for the last 4 years cash and then converted the cash to Bitcoin? What would it be worth? I put it through one of these calculators and I was like, dang, dog. I would have made a brick. I would have made $1.3 billion.
The point here is the world is waking up, not just absolute real estate magnates like Grant Cardone, also his brother, Gary Cardone, what we're seeing with Michael Saylor. We're seeing so many different aspects. And here's the deal. We all got to live somewhere and we all want to make smart investment decisions. And so we've got different opportunities that are starting to pop up. And in fact, I got an incredible guest that I'm going to be bringing on right now. This is CJ from People's Reserve. How you doing, good sir? I hear you guys have something in these integrations with real estate and Bitcoin that it's not something that requires a $5 million, holy moly, that's a lot of money, $5 million investment to get involved. This is a little something for a little bit of everybody out there. So introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about People's Reserve. I'm happy that we could partner with you to bring this to the people.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for having me. It's great to be here. And I love what you were saying. I mean, we are watching with our own eyes the monetization of the asset class. And this happened with real estate after they removed gold from backing the dollar. Michael Saylor calls it land banking. But what really accelerated the monetary premium into the real estate asset class was the financialization of the asset class, the advent of common mortgages, second mortgages, home equity lines of credit, and all the different financial tools and contracts that are built up around that asset class. That financialization drove a massive monetary premium into the asset class that we still have here today. So Bitcoin is at the beginning of its financialization. Yes, it's being monetized by Wall Street right now, but by you guys tuning into this show, listening with Kelly, learning, what you're going to know is that you're ahead of the cycle. And what comes next is financialization. So when we look at these price points and price goes down a little bit, price goes up a little bit, it doesn't matter. It's just like real estate. It's just like that $250,000 beach house that today is now worth $5-10 million because of where it is.
Let me pause you though, just to make it clear for everybody, even myself, we all need to be humble when we got somebody like you on that really understands the financial side of the world as well as the Bitcoin, the Bitcoin side of the world and how these things are merging. What does the financialization of Bitcoin mean, and how does that impact a sort of trajectory for Bitcoin, whether it be positive or negative?
Yeah, absolutely. Great question, Kelly. And what happens here is Bitcoin is trapped equity right now. Everybody who holds Bitcoin doesn't want to sell it because we know where it's going. And, a mistake that I made was I bought my house for 100 Bitcoin. I walk into my $10 million home and it's worth less than $500,000. So at People's Reserve, we built the Bitcoin powered mortgage to help people not get into that problem, because what's going to happen is this ongoing transfer of wealth is going to massively accelerate. And as it accelerates, you don't want to give up that Bitcoin equity on your balance sheet. You want to tap into it. This is what Elon Musk did when he bought Twitter. Part of that purchase was financed with equity in Tesla. He borrowed against those Tesla shares, paid for it, and then used cash flow from his portfolio to close the debt. At the end of it, he still has his Tesla shares, plus he has Twitter, which he now calls X. So this is what the elites do. They use super assets and they borrow against those assets and then use cash flows to close those liabilities. This avoids a taxable event and it allows you to unlock the purchasing power of the savings on your balance sheet in order to increase your quality of life and standard of living. So what we see here is that the use case of Bitcoin now goes beyond just savings technology. It's no longer that Bitcoin is an engineered money that was strategically designed to store value through time and space. But it's also now, with the advent of financialization and financial products built up and around the asset class, the most pristine form of collateral in the world. There is no other collateral. There's a yacht, real estate, car, even cash equivalents like US Treasury debt or corporate debt. There is no other asset class in the world that trades 24/7, 365 with deep liquidity that can be settled in 10 minutes with transaction finality. And for those reasons, Bitcoin is the most pristine form of collateral in the world. And what we see happening now as we accelerate this transfer of wealth is that those who are responsibly saving in Bitcoin are going to be able to leverage that wealth without having to give up ownership. And that's the kicker. When you come to a company like People's Reserve because you're ready to buy your home, if you're not using a financial tool, you're going to give up that Bitcoin like I did in 2019, 100 Bitcoin. Well, I'm sure another 6 years from now, the 5 Bitcoin that I could get for my house is going to be in the same scenario. If you pay 5 Bitcoin today, you're going to look back in 6 years and be like, man, that's what was I thinking? Because the 5-year compounding annual growth rate on Bitcoin is over 60%. That's a 10x. That 500,000 you're spending today could be worth more than $5 million if
So
Bitcoin
you bring
maintains.
up a great point, and it's one of my favorite visual charts that I share, but also the numbers. You know, when you look at the difference between the dollar and Bitcoin, just on the basic comparison to purchasing a house, back in 2016, an average family home was about $250,000 and cost about 664 Bitcoin. And, you know, fast forward to 2025, the average family home is about $480,000, and it costs basically about 4 Bitcoin. Now, the difference here, though, is there wasn't financialization of Bitcoin back in 2016 like there is now, like you have with People's Reserve, where instead of spending the Bitcoin now, because although those metrics sound great, you spent 100 Bitcoin, which probably felt great at the time on the house. And then you realize later, you're like, well, yeah, okay, it costs, you know, it didn't cost 10,000 or 100,000 like it would have 5 years before that. However, you didn't just traded your Bitcoin away for the house versus now utilizing your Bitcoin as an anchor, as a collateral anchor to purchase a house without having to sell your Bitcoin. Is that correct?
That's absolutely spot on. And what people are so used to doing is pledging their time and energy. Now Bitcoin comes along. You don't want to back your debt with your own time and energy. You want to back your debt with your Bitcoin. And that's why they call it debt slavery, because the traditional form of debt is based on a promise. And your promise to, if you get a 30-year mortgage, you're going to promise to trade your time and energy to keep earning cash flow in order to close the debt. You're backing the debt with your promise of time and energy. Well, now we have this super asset. We have Bitcoin, the most pristine form of collateral in the world. It's much better to back your debt with this pristine collateral, with this engineered money, because what happens over time, your time and energy, it doesn't grow the way Bitcoin's value grows. Wages do not keep up with price increases. So in real terms, even if if inflation is 10% and you get a 5% raise, you're actually getting a 5% pay cut because you can buy 5% less goods and services with your earnings. So over time, your time and energy is actually being devalued and in real terms is losing value. But if you take Bitcoin as your savings vehicle and you use it as pristine collateral at a company like People's Reserve, what happens is the Bitcoin is now backing your debt. And because Bitcoin is engineered money, a savings technology, it appreciates in value over time. So the original debt that you take out actually shrinks. The burden of the fiat denominated debt shrinks over time. And at People's Reserve, it's not just about unlocking the purchasing power of your Bitcoin without giving up ownership. We have our loyalty token sale coming up on July 4th. It's time to take back financial independence and freedom. And with that loyalty token, you can get an interest rate as low as 3.5%. 3.5%. That's 100 basis points below what the US government is borrowing. That means that you, the responsible saver of Bitcoin, are now the risk-free borrower. And you, the responsible saver of this engineered money, now have access to the cheapest cost of capital for any home buyer in the world. That's what makes this financialization movement special, Kelly. It's not just about creating interest rate tools around the asset class. It's about redefining the risk-free borrower and redefining the risk-free rate in credit markets, because proof of promise doesn't stand up to pristine collateral. And those who understand this now and take advantage of this now and buy Bitcoin now and continue to save in Bitcoin over the coming years, you will be the new cantillionaires, for lack of a better word. I think you're going to have a better mindset and drive the world in a better direction. That's why we call this the Orange Peace movement. But you will have access to the cheapest capital because you will be the risk-free borrower. And that's what this movement is so exciting for us at People's Reserve. Truly, for the first time in 70 years, finance is now evolving.
So with that, I want to come back to People's Reserve here in a moment, but there's been some incredible changes across the landscape of crypto, of Bitcoin, of blockchain, of digital assets since this administration came in office. Again, whether anybody out there watching, whether you like Trump or not, is irrelevant to when you're looking at the impacts of an asset class when you're forward looking for that specific asset. So you can hate Trump and appreciate what he's doing for the crypto ecosystem and the empowerment that has come into place. One of the things that we just saw, what was it, a few days ago, it was last week, that was the FHFA director basically talking about integrating Bitcoin and crypto for mortgages. Now, how does this fit into the picture with what you're doing with People's Reserve? Does this stand to displace? Are you guys completely separate from this? Or is this just one of those things that it's like a welcome inclusion for positive steps within the crypto regulation?
Yeah, this doesn't affect our business model directly, because what this does is it allows standardized mortgages and qualified mortgages. The Fannie and Freddie will now incorporate into your credit, basically your credit score. They'll take into account any of your crypto holdings. So if if you're a crypto millionaire and you made great investments and great trades, but you don't have a job and you do something else on the side, you're not going to get financing. You have a low credit score. You're in that sweet spot in the system where you're ostracized. You have millions of dollars of liquid assets, but no access to credit or capital. So this what Bill did with this is said, look, we got to realize that there's a lot of wealth in crypto, right? Bitcoin is now a $2 trillion market cap. It's being monetized as digital gold, heading towards $20 trillion. We got to make sure this wealth is accounted for when you go to get a loan to buy your home. But what People's Reserve does, I think, is actually a step further, because we're not in the traditional standardized qualified mortgage industry. We're in the non-standardized, non-qualified mortgage industry. And the difference between those two industries is that standardized qualified mortgages can actually be packaged together in what's called a residential commercial mortgage-backed security. So these mortgage-backed securities take a whole bunch of loans and group them together. And because those loans are standardized and meet certain criteria, they can be sold as a cash flow instrument. And they're typically sold to Fannie and Freddie, who own, I think, over $7 trillion of these standardized mortgages. So People's Reserve is in the non-standardized, non-qualified mortgage. And that's because we integrate Bitcoin as a form of collateral into the contract. And I saw actually in your comments, Pre-Rich, he said that I guess I should be selling my house for more Bitcoin. Well, then where are you going to live? So at People's Reserve, like, we have to understand the hierarchy of needs, right? You need a home. Like, do I regret buying my house for 100 Bitcoin? Honestly, I do not, because the memories I've made with my family and kids, the upgrade in my quality of life and standard of living, that's part of life. That's what it's all about. Why gain wealth if you don't expel a responsible amount of it to increase your quality of life and standard of living? So at People's Reserve, we actually have a product called a home equity Bitcoin line of credit. Yeah, we don't recommend that you sell your home to buy Bitcoin. Now, maybe you have an investment home or an Airbnb. Yeah, you should probably go ahead and liquidate that one if you can at this point to get Bitcoin. But in your main residence, in your domicile, you need that place to live and to raise your family and to experience life. So with the home equity Bitcoin line of credit, what we do is we enable you to transform your home equity into Bitcoin equity. So if you have, maybe you bought your home 5-10 years ago and you have $100,000 plus of equity in your home, typically you would grow that wealth at a 2 to 8% compounding annual growth rate, depending on your zip code, right? The really nice areas, you're going to get an 8% growth year over year. the lesser nice areas, you get 2% growth. So you're barely keeping up with the rate of inflation and dollar dilution. But we want to help you keep your home, but transform your equity into Bitcoin equity. Now, why would you do that? Because you now take that equity on your balance sheet that's growing at 2 to 8% CAGR, and you put it into Bitcoin, which has a 10-year CAGR of over 80%, 5-year CAGR over 60%. So in 5 years, you can literally 10x your wealth if you transform that home equity into Bitcoin equity. And you get to stay and live in your home. So that's a really important thing, because you can't, what are you going to do? Live on the street? You need a home to live in. And if you were a responsible saver, a responsible worker, and you were able to get financing in the traditional market and you locked in a good interest rate, well, then you probably have a decent chunk of home equity. It's with the financialization of the Bitcoin asset class. And I believe what we're seeing is the monetary premium from real estate will actually drain from real estate into Bitcoin. And that's not to say it's all going to disappear. Real estate is still a collateral. It's not pristine collateral, but it's still financialized. There's still many use cases for it. But a lot of that premium that is baked into prices will actually go into Bitcoin because it is a more pristine collateral. So you can front run. Right now, you have Bitcoin treasury companies that are massive Bitcoin accumulators using financial engineering to accumulate Bitcoin. You have sovereign nations buying Bitcoin and mining Bitcoin. What are you to do? How do you not fall behind? Well,
Yeah.
take advantage of the one really good decision you made, which was to get that mortgage, buy the property. And now that you've experienced that growth in home equity, it's time to tap into that equity, transform it into Bitcoin, and now let that engineered money exponentially grow your wealth over the coming years through this transfer.
So on that note, there's going to be obviously different types of players out there, or different types of customers, or people interested in People's Reserve, and that are, in my estimation, would be people that have crypto, that are looking to buy a home. People that have already bought a home that have a mortgage that they think that they can potentially tap some liquidity and get that money activated back into Bitcoin in the crypto market. Is there a third? Is there a third rail there? And then also, what's the process? Like, if I was starting today and I came across and I found People's Reserve on X, I saw a BitLab interview with Kelly and CJ. We're talking about everything that's going on here with People's Reserve, and it's like, I want to get involved. How does somebody get? What's the process to get involved? Is it a headache to go through? Are there other requirements or regulations that you have hoops to jump through? What's the breakdown there?
Yeah, so the first thing would just go to peoplesreserve.com, sign up for our newsletter. You'll be able to get all of our most recent announcements. And again, on July 4th, we have our loyalty token sale. So the reason that you would buy the loyalty token is because you're going to use a Bitcoin powered financial product and you want to get the lowest interest rates. So our interest rates for a Bitcoin powered mortgage will start at 10.5. But with the tokens, you're able actually to get a 3.5% interest rate. So that's one of the big things that's going on now is like, hey, how do I get a lower interest rate? How do I make this home affordable? Because I'm making more money, but now I can only afford a smaller home. This is crazy. I want to get into the most square feet that I can that makes sense for my condition. And that's what People's Reserve will help you optimize. We are a centralized platform located and regulated in the United States of America. So there is KYC AML when you sign up for our platform. When it launches later this month, you'll have to get in there, verify your identity. And then from that point, we make it so easy that grandma can do it. There's like, to any one of our products, you have to click a mouse 5 or 6 times and you're set. All of the sophisticated financial engineering takes place in the background. We're here to make it very easy for you. And we'll have a team of people who will be able to answer your questions. You can always keep a close eye on us on X. I do a lot of interviews like this, and I appreciate you bringing me on, Kelly, because I truly believe that this is actually the moment that people will look back on. This mortgage moment. People don't realize how big the real estate industry is. It's a multi-$100 trillion marketplace. Gold is $20 trillion, right? So digital gold is cool, but
So even
digital,
getting something like 2% would be monumental in terms of liquidity.
yeah, our goal is in the next halving cycle, the next 4 years, to just get 1%. So 1% would be just an absolutely monstrous amount of like, for instance, Michael Saylor is going for 1% of the bond market. That's a $300 trillion market. Well, real estate is over $300 trillion market. So it's a very similar market size, and Bitcoin has a role to play in both of those markets. It's going to play as a security mechanism in real estate in order to make the real estate more affordable and to bring interest rates down sustainably. And then it's going to work in the financial sector as a cash flow vehicle, which we also have at People's Reserve. We call it a Bitcoin bond. So whether you need to get your home or whether you need to establish cash flows because you don't want to clock in and clock out, we have a tool for you, and it's always going to be Bitcoin powered.
I love that. I just want to highlight this again over at peoplesreserve.com. I dropped the link in the live chat there for everybody that's tuned in. If you're watching this later, you might not see the live chat. You can head to peoplesreserve.com. What when people sign up for this newsletter, what are they signing up for? What do they get?
Yeah, so not only are we going to teach you about Bitcoin, which I think you can get into a lot of different places in the marketplace where you can get some good education on Bitcoin, but we're going to teach you how to use your Bitcoin with Bitcoin powered financial products. That's the difference here. So, yes, you'll learn about Bitcoin, but most importantly, you'll learn how to use these new financial tools to your advantage. I like to call Bitcoin the wheel. When you think about the wheel, you don't need to reinvent the wheel. Once the wheel was created, it was created. It was created perfectly. We didn't need another wheel. But what did we do? We attached the wheel to a car so that we could travel. We attach a wheel to an airplane so that we can fly. Well, People's Reserve is the cart that you attach to the Bitcoin wheel so that you can become more productive, so that you can unlock the purchasing power of your savings without giving up ownership. And then how you invest that purchasing power is up to you. We're just here to give you the tools so that you can unlock that purchasing power. If you've been a responsible saver of Bitcoin, or even today, if you're just starting to save Bitcoin, in the next 5 years, you can see your savings go 10x from where they are right now. So when you get to that point and you're now into an area where you're looking to step back from your job, not clock in and clock out anymore, make a couple different investments, put some diversification within your portfolio to create some cash flow. When you're moving to that next financial level, you need a counterparty that you can trust. I'm not sure it's going to make sense to go back to the TradFi guys who don't understand what Bitcoin is. I'm not sure it's going to make sense to go back to the traditional yield curve where they're trying to charge you 10 to 16% to borrow from your Bitcoin. Meanwhile, the guy who walks in through the bank door and makes a promise can borrow for 6.5%. So we really need to, this is a mission. And what we'll do is we'll align you with our mission so that you understand not only what Bitcoin is, not only how to use Bitcoin, but that this is about free market money. This is a peaceful revolution. And you can't have free market money when there is a centralized entity stating the price of money. You need free market money and you need free market interest rates. You can't have one without the other. And what People's Reserve, our secondary mission to empowering you, is to establish a free market yield curve. And we believe between our Bitcoin powered mortgage products and our Bitcoin bonds, we will have reference points for the digital economy, the only economy in the world with true free market interest rates, not stated by a small group of men. And we can take that and leverage that economy to grow our wealth. We don't have to tie our wealth to the US economy or the Chinese economy or the Russian economy or BRICS or whoever you want to try to tie it to through some fiat currency derivative. You can now detach from real world economies and attach to the internet economy, and you're going to be able to grow your wealth exponentially. We're at the point now. I remember during the dot-com bubble, some companies were like, I don't need a website. Well, now the storefronts are closing, and if you don't have a website, you're not a company. So that's where we are now with Bitcoin. Right now, people are like, oh, we don't need Bitcoin. Yeah, but very soon and in an exponential fashion, the same thing that happened with the internet, before you know it, every single person, every single company, every single corporation, every single sovereign nation will have Bitcoin on their balance sheet. And you have the ability by tuning in here with Kelly and myself to front run that and put yourself in a position to learn about Bitcoin, leverage the financial tools, and get ahead in life to increase your quality of life and standard of living.
Well, you know what I find most fascinating about this all is the term risk mitigation. As unsexy as that sounds, I think we're in like the ultimate risk mitigation stage of Bitcoin right now and the crypto ecosystem as a whole. And that is, are you stacking? Do you have a plan? And are you navigating your world in a way that's not costing you what you're able to stack? And so, that's one of the reasons why I was excited to partner with People's Reserve and bring you to our community, because it's these types of tools that really help provide that risk mitigation. We all need to buy a house, and sometimes we have money locked up in a house that we don't know how to access, or we don't know how to access it in a way that is on our terms. Using our collateral, using our capital, whether again to buy a house or pull capital out to get it back in the market or utilize other tools that are available out there. But especially what you're talking about with the Bitcoin bonds, incredible. But also I'd love to ask you about the self-repaying mortgages. And obviously I think everybody in crypto, when they think about using crypto in any way for collateral, or even the word collateral in it, when purchasing something, we're all aware of the volatility that's in this market. So how can it be that there's no rehypothecation and that there's no liquidation risk, and self-repaying mortgages? Like, kind of tie those things together so people can really understand the juice here.
Yeah, that's a great question, Kelly. I love that question because that's what makes People's Reserve different from anybody else. And I'd like to use the COVID example because you never know when that liquidity event is going to hit. So if you were lending from another lender in the space during COVID and price was at 10,000 and it came down to 6,000, you're getting margin calls. And then you go to sleep at night, whether you posted more Bitcoin or not, maybe you didn't post enough. Price drops below $3,500 and you've been liquidated. Now the most important asset on your balance sheet is gone because of a liquidity event that was completely out of your control. That's unacceptable. So at People's Reserve, we wanted to make sure that we mitigated price volatility-based liquidation risk. And how do we do that? Well, first off, there's a cross collateralization of both real estate and Bitcoin. So it's not just the Bitcoin. With any other lender, you're borrowing against Bitcoin like it's a risk on tech stock. You're borrowing against Bitcoin on margin. And that way your LTV adjusts. And if your LTV breaches the contractual point without mercy, you're liquidated. At People's Reserve, we don't do it that way. We actually use variable interest rates. And we couldn't be more excited to introduce the variable interest rate model. We are first market mover at the tip of the spear of financial engineering for the everyday person. So what we do is as the price goes down 10%, your interest rate goes up by half of 1% or 50 basis points. So in the COVID scenario, price goes down from 10,000 down to 5,000, your interest rate goes up 2.5%. So let's say you're at that 3.5% mark. Your interest rate is now 5 full percent. But what happens is when Bitcoin starts to rebound, your interest rate starts to go back and normalize. So when you get back to the $10,000 and your collateral is back to 1-to-1, you're right back where you started from. So for a month or two, you paid a higher monthly payment. But then when Bitcoin got back to 10,000, you're right back to your original payment system. You had no liquidation risk whatsoever. You still hold the most important asset on your balance sheet and you still own it. And then even better, Kelly, is as Bitcoin goes on beyond 10,000 and starts putting in new all-time highs, as the value of your collateral increases, that decreases the risk for the lender. That means we can lower your interest rate. So for every 10% price that Bitcoin goes up above the 1-to-1 collateralization rate, you'll get 20 basis points shaved off of your interest rate. And we allow you to max over collateralize your position by 200%. So if you borrowed 500,000, the Bitcoin can appreciate all the way up to 1.5 million and continue to knock your interest rate down, decreasing your monthly mortgage payment, freeing up that cash flow to increase your quality of life and standard of living, which means you can knock 4 percentage points by over collateralizing your Bitcoin off of our interest rates. And at the diamond level, it's at 7.5%, minus 4 is 3.5%. You can literally utilize your Bitcoin, no credit score, no credit checks, no income verification. Bitcoin's the money that does the talking at the table. And you can get an interest rate that is 100 basis points below what the US government is borrowing at. Because truly, when you use Bitcoin as a savings technology, you are the risk-free borrower and you deserve access to the cheapest cost of capital in the world.
I mean, it's phenomenal what has been developed and what is continuing to roll out. And, teams like yours with People's Reserve, bringing meaningful tools and utility for everybody that's tuned in here. You'll know I don't tend to partner. We don't partner with a lot of people. We've got Bitcoin IRA, as you see up there, Arculus, both different tools, real utilities. And People's Reserve, we're doing a sort of partnership here as well. And it's because I want to make sure that we bring you meaningful tools that are getting deployed within the space that can help improve how you navigate this market, but also make sure that you navigating this market doesn't steal from your ability to do everything in the real world, because we need housing, we need retirement, we need security. Bitcoin IRA, Arculus, People's Reserve, all incredible different utilities throughout the ecosystem. And I couldn't be more excited to sit and talk with you here, CJ. You know, we're sitting here right now. The price, some people are losing their minds that the price is having a little bit of a pullback. Oh my God, it is over. It's over. They forget to look at this, you know, on a zoomed out time frame and realize that this is a one-way ticket to the top. When you're zoomed out, it's a one-way ticket up. Now, all of us get lost in a 15-minute chart and we look at this and we go, "Oh my God, it's over." And I'm looking at this going like, this is just absolute dream buy opportunity. So I'd love to get your sort of thoughts here before we go. You know, just general state of the market. You know, we got Bitcoin looking like it's more bullish than ever in terms of the runway moving forward. We got Ethereum that has been off everybody's radar for whatever reason, but now with the Genius Act and stablecoins and how much that's going to, I mean, accelerate and exponentially just explode into integrations around the world, and every means of transaction is going to be integrating with stablecoins, and that's going to be largely held on Ethereum. But then we see, I mean, Chainlink with integrations of Web 2 to Web 3. I mean, am I too bullish here? Are we due a big ass pullback because the landscape is so bullish? What's your general sort of look, you know, looking through the end of the year?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think you're too bullish. I think that the marketplace is actually maturing. And what we're going to find out is that, and the Bitcoin maxis are going to hate this, but I'm a Bitcoin maxi myself. So if you don't, let's sign wallets and see who's the bigger Bitcoin maxi. What I'm trying to say here is that there is a reason for crypto to exist. Bitcoin is the money. Bitcoin is the wheel. You don't need to reinvent the wheel. Anything that's competing with Bitcoin is a scam. But things that complement Bitcoin and provide valuable tools to increase our quality of life and standard of living, like you were saying, Kelly, those have a reason to exist. So, number one, what's going on with Bitcoin? Well, for lack of time, I can't take a deeper dive except to say this. Check out my Bitcoin fair value algorithm. This is an algorithm that I developed when I started mining so I could properly manage my treasury through the halving and difficulty adjustment cycles. And I have Bitcoin fair value right now upwards of I think it's upwards of $300,000, somewhere around that level. And there's never been a Bitcoin bull market where the bull market ended with the price below that fair value. So something fundamentally changed with the launch of the ETFs. There's been massive accumulation, and I think there's a lot. 100,000 is a psychological only. There's no technical resistance here. It's all psychological. So once we flip this psychological resistance into support, and people cope with the fact that Bitcoin is going much higher than 100,000, the rocket is going to launch, much like when we launched from like 60,000 up to 100. It wasn't a slow moving thing with lots of retraces. It was a quick repricing. And that's what we're going to see. If you don't buy these dips, when that quick repricing takes place, you're going to miss out on that growth. So you want to make sure you just continue to dollar cost average through these different ranges and take these repricing ranges as a gift so that you can buy the dips and continue to accumulate. Yeah, I mean, that's what that is. That's called distribution. So while some people are riding that wave as traders and then distributing and then moving into your first highlighted section there with repricing, you just want to accumulate through distribution because we're playing the long game here. We're not playing trading. You get that big move up to the 60,000 level. Then you go up and down, up and down, up and down. You accumulate through distribution, and then there's repricing. And look what happened. We're now going through distribution again. The big financial players, this is what they do. They accumulate, distribute, accumulate, distribute. But us as small players and trying to save as much Bitcoin as we can, we don't distribute. We continue to accumulate. So take these sideways movements as a blessing to continue to build your Bitcoin stack, because when this next repricing move takes place, we're going to go much higher and Bitcoin is going to become less affordable. So don't take the short-term outlook. And then secondary to that is, I think, Michael Saylor, he wrote and published the digital asset framework. In the digital asset framework, he talked about Bitcoin as the reserve asset of the digital economy, a digital commodity backed by digital power. He also talked about tokenized securities or actual literal stocks that were turned into tokens. He talked about tokenized commodities, or ABTs, he calls them, like gold and silver and oil and other different types of commodities. So we envision a tokenized world where everything is priced in sats and settled on Bitcoin. And with the advent of this maturation of the marketplace, we're going to see this happen. And I think PRN, which is the name of our loyalty token, the People's Reserve Network PRN loyalty token, is at the forefront of embracing Michael Saylor's digital asset framework. Actually, when our token sale contract goes live on July 4th, people will see right there on Ethereum in our Solidity contract, we actually state that Bitcoin is the secure truth ledger in the world and that all of finance is moving to it. We kind of put our mission into our contract. But what's so important for people to understand is that there is a reason when crypto complements Bitcoin instead of competes with it, you should be paying attention. So when you talk about projects like Link that allow DeFi to take place, you talk about projects like Aave and Uniswap and other decentralized finance applications, these things are worth looking at. These things are worth understanding. And it's also important to understand these are investments, right? Bitcoin is your savings. You don't invest in Bitcoin, you save in it. These other things are investments. So you only invest what you're willing to lose. But if you add that little bit of additional risk and we get this big move into a financialization, which we know is happening, JP Morgan is doing stable coins. BlackRock is doing stable coins. If you don't think this is happening, you're not paying attention. This is happening. So front run the sovereigns and the institutions with your Bitcoin savings, but then front run those same institutions into what really matters. And I think with PRN, we couldn't be more excited to, number one, save you money. If you're going to get a mortgage with your Bitcoin, you should be getting the lowest interest rate. If People's Reserve can do that, you come to us. If somebody else can do it, I'm not going to tell you to come to us. You should go to them. You should take the cheapest cost of capital. But you should really take a deep look at where this ecosystem is going. Bitcoin as the reserve asset of the digital economy, and crypto with the infrastructure that helps evolve Bitcoin from digital gold to pristine collateral. And if you keep your focus there, I think that you could 100x your wealth over the next 10 years.
I couldn't agree more with you there. And I even saw somebody in the comments talking about, the possible changes coming at some point in the near future if we potentially get like a change in the tax structure around Bitcoin and crypto capital gains. But my statement there is great if it happens, but we should be smart even if it doesn't happen. And this is the case for every form of currency that you can utilize, whether it's dollars, whether it's Bitcoin, whether in any currency you're using. Every one of us should take a more responsibility and more accountability for education. Like, for instance, I have an LLC, right? So I'm contracted, and I contract to work with Hit Network. So because I'm contracted rather than working for Hit Network, I can rent out a third of my rent here. I can rent from myself from my business. My car driving, I write myself a check every month for 62%. I think it's somewhere in there. 62% of every mile I get 62 cents on every mile that I drive. So I have a tracker app that tracks and at the end of the month, I can pay myself. And the reason why that's interesting is because it's ways to utilize the tax structure that does exist to your benefit. Because if I'm paying myself for the home office rental, that's not taxable income. If I'm paying myself for mileage driven, that's not taxable income. And what else do? We all live somewhere. So let's make sure that we're doing something smart about how we're utilizing the funds and the tools that are available to us, because you've all been put on notice. Do some research, look into People's Reserve, look into other mechanisms you can use in your daily life so you can limit how much money it costs you to spend money. It is ridiculous we live in that type of world, but we have the tools available to us. We have ChatGPT, we've got Grok, we've got BitLab Academy, we got Discover Crypto, and we've got People's Reserve for those of you that have houses or looking to get a house or looking to tap some equity. There's so much that is there. I couldn't be more excited about this conversation. You and I are going to have to get back on here in a week or two and follow up after you guys do your launch. I'd love to have you back regularly if you're open to it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And it was a pleasure having this conversation. These are the most important conversations to have because, Kelly, you're not just sitting here talking about price. You are teaching people how to get ahead in life. And that is what it's really all about. Real people getting real results that allows them to increase their quality of life and standard of living, and not only plan for their future, but for their children's future. There is no important calling than that. And I'd be more than happy to come back after we go live and to take another dive.
I couldn't agree more with you there. And just like if you're going to use a tool at a construction site, you have to know how to use the tool. And everybody, you got to realize Bitcoin is a tool. Dollars are a tool. How are you using your tools? Ask yourself that today. That's my homework for all of you. Ask yourself, how am I utilizing my financial tools available to me? So 1% doesn't seem like a lot. 2% doesn't seem like a lot. But when you have 100 or 200 or even 50 different purchases or ways you're spending money or capital or Bitcoin throughout each month, those 1 and 2% changes and adjustments will make up a substantial amount of savings or substantial amount of growth in your net worth. And if you don't have a net worth yet, let's get you there. That's what this is all about. CJ, I appreciate you. Do you have any last things you'd like to shout out other than everybody making sure you head over to peoplesreserve.com, sign up for this free newsletter, get informed on what's going on in the Bitcoin ecosystem, also everything that's going on with the People's Reserve and other tools available to you. But did you have any other calls to action to the people that are here tuned in?
Just to follow on X at CJ Constantinos and at People's Reserve. That's where we're most active. We don't really have any other socials besides that. And we couldn't be more excited to do business with people who have already woken up, who have already detached themselves from the matrix, who are recognizing new systems are being built, new tools are available. Let's use these tools to get ahead. Thank you so much, Kelly. And I look forward to the next one.
I look forward to it too. Everybody, you can follow him specifically directly at CJ Constantinos. I'll drop that link in the live chat as well for everybody watching on YouTube and Rumble. If you are watching, I still see the data every day, everybody. We got about 45-50% of the people that are watching on a daily basis that are not subscribed. Hit that subscribe button, show some love. Come over here, give CJ Constantinos a follow along with what they're doing there. Get involved in the newsletter. Get great information that they're sharing there. And of course, follow People's Reserve at People's Reserve on X. And you can find more information on them at peoplesreserve.com. CJ, I appreciate you. I know you got a lot on your plate today. Coming up on Financial Freedom Day, July 4th, People's Reserve. Everybody get involved in that newsletter. We'll see you in the next one, CJ. I appreciate you so much.
Thank you so much. See you next time.
Adios, my friend. Everybody, what a great conversation that was, right? Make sure, definitely sign up for this newsletter. There's a lot of great information that they're sending out, not just on People's Reserves, but how to navigate the Bitcoin ecosystem, also with the financialized tools that are available to you. Everybody, stay tuned on this chart. Do not get freaked out if we get a little bit more of a dip. I talked about that at the beginning of the stream. You can go back and check in on that. And I'm expecting to start to see some fireworks. As I said, July, I think, is going to be an overwhelmingly bullish month. So let's know that that doesn't mean that we can't have a dip setting that long up before it happens. If it comes, you'll be prepared, you'll be happy, you'll be excited. But that's all we got today, everybody. I love you so much. I'm going to chat with CJ here in the back as we wrap it out. I hope you all have a wonderful day. Get involved, and I'll see you in the next one. Adios, everybody.